Hello everybody and a very, very warm welcome to Portimao for the opening round of the 2021 Euroformula Open season. It's been a long time since we went racing. It's been a very long 6 months. We hope that you and your loved ones have stayed safe and well and that 2021 brings better things than last year. But hopefully we'll get it off, at least from Euroformula Open perspective, with a flying start this weekend here in Portugal. A triple header to kick off the season. Talking you through the action, it's myself, Ben Evans. Alongside me is Elliot Wood. And Elliot, we should be in for a very entertaining start to the year.
Yep, as we can see from this shot of the pit straight, we've got a huge descent into turn one. That means action straight away from the very off. And with such a closely packed field in qualifying prior to a few changes, which we'll mention later, we know these drivers can run very close together.
So we have got 19 laps or 35 minutes ahead of us, and it is going to be Louis Foster for the Crypto Tower Racing team, the British driver, who will head the field, and he shares the front row of the grid with Team Motorpark's Cameron Dass. The pair of them separated by a fraction over a quarter of a second after a really interesting qualifying session. And also, I think in terms of the race, Elliot, we saw Cameron Dass's best lap. He lost it because he locks up in the middle of the second sector. He could possibly go quicker, so he and Foster are very evenly matched.
Yep, and on Louis Foster's last lap, he went too wide through turn one and also lost opportunity there. And the driver who was third fastest, Van Amersfoort Racing's Andreas Essner, he's had his fastest lap deleted since the qualifying session, and that's now dropped into 8th place on the grid. So that's going to cause excitement as well, because we know he's a driver who's very fast, but he's going to be starting further back, so he's got a lot of overtaking to do.
So it's a case of VAR penalising VAR, really, wasn't it? Because the steward spotted that Essner run wide, so he gets drop kicked down to 8th. It means that up to 3rd on the grid comes the driver making the step up from British Formula 3. That is Josh Mason for the Double R Racing team, and he will share the second row with Rafael Villagomez for Van Amersfoort Racing. Villagomez and Mason, the two drivers who were quickest in free practice yesterday. So again, that will be interesting to see how their pace translates over the race distance.
Yep, and Villagomez, he won the Richard Mille Talent Academy shootout last year, which enabled him to race in Formula 4. He did a decent job there, and he's made the step up, a bigger step than Mason has into this class. So of the drivers in our top 4, top 5, he's the one who's making the biggest leap up to Euroformula, although he did, of course, actually do last year's season finale as a bit of a warm-up for this campaign.
Well, we'll come on to other drivers who made a big leap in a couple of moments' time. 5th on the grid then is Nazim Azman for Crypto Tower Racing, and alongside him will be Zdenek Chovanec, the Venezuelan driver. Unfortunately ended the qualifying session in the gravel trap at turn 1. He had a big lose of the car on the way into the first corner, got on the anchors, but it wasn't enough to prevent the car ending up in the gravel. But there appeared to be no damage done to the car, and hopefully no damage done to the driver's confidence either.
Yep, and this circuit is very, very tricky, so it's not surprising drivers made mistakes early in the weekend, especially on a track that hadn't quite rubbered in.
And then on row 7 it is all Van Amersfoort Racing with Casper Stevenson, another of the drivers in the rookie trophy, alongside Chovanec, who has made a big jump up, very limited single-seater experience prior to this campaign. And then Andreas Essner, who, as we were saying earlier, lost the time that would have been good enough for 3rd place to drop him down into 8th on the grid.
Yep, and in 9th place we have Vivian Castelli, who raced in W Series back in 2019. She's now racing with Team Motorpark. And in 10th place is a surname some may recognise, Enzo Trulli. His father is Jarno Trulli, winner of the 2004 Monaco Grand Prix, and he's making his debut with DriveX.
And Enzo, who raced in the UAE Formula 4 Championship through the winter, was involved in spectacular moments and a late decision to come into the championship, and he will be hoping to progress through the field. And then the 6th row of the grid is Philip Camanares and Enzo Scionti, the American in the second DriveX car. So a look a little bit closer up at the grid. We've got 3 minutes to go, as you can see from the countdown on the red lights. And Elliot, for the drivers, a real thrill this weekend to open their campaign in front of the Formula 1 paddock.
Yep, the last time Euroformula did this was back in the Spanish F3 days, when Formula 1 first visited the Valencia street circuit back in 2008, and Euroformula joined for that weekend. And there was some star names actually who came from the higher series to race in Euroformula to learn the circuit. Then, yeah, this is the next time we're supporting Formula 1. Obviously, the F1 teams are going to be very busy this weekend, but they always watch the support races. You know, I've spoken to Formula 2 drivers, Formula 3 drivers, and they always say that, you know, they can tell when the F1 drivers and generally just the people in the F1 paddock are all looking at the monitors to see how these young stars are getting on and who to look out for in the future.
Absolutely, and so a real opportunity to impress around this spectacular Portimao circuit, which winds its way and undulates through the Algarve countryside. It's always been a favourite of teams and drivers alike, as we have a close look up at Louis Foster, the son of former British Touring Car Championship racer Nick Foster. And Louis did a park campaign last year with some success, particularly at Spa, and seems fully focused on the job ahead.
Yeah, his racecraft was particularly good last year. Didn't quite have the qualifying speed to match, and that was purely because of inexperience with the car, but he won his second ever race at Spa-Francorchamps, benefiting from the two main title rivals ahead. And I don't think Nick Foster's father ever took a pole at Algarve, so that's one to tick off for the family.
So Cameron Dass, probably the most experienced of the drivers in the Euroformula Open. He's been around the Euroformula paddock for the best part of 5 years or so, has got several front row starts to his name, but can he convert that today into victories? We have a look then at the full grid. Louis Foster and Cam Dass on the front row, then Josh Mason and Rafael Villagomez on row 2. Nazim Azman and Zdenek Chovanec completing the top 6. We'll move on to the all VAR fourth row of the grid with Casper Stevenson and Andreas Essner. Then it is Vimon Castelli, Enzo Trilli, Felipe Camarares and Enzo Scionti to complete the pack, taking to the start in first of today's races. Now, if you've been a long-time Euroformula follower, you may remember the time when the series always had its grid set by qualifying sessions. Well, this year, the way that it will work is race 1 today was set by the qualifying session we had this morning. The grid for race 2 later this afternoon is going to be determined by the finishing order of this race with the top 6 reversed. So a good finish has got an awful lot of importance for the remainder of the weekend for these drivers.
Yeah, it's the very first time we've introduced reverse grids into Euroformula, and this is a series where many of the F1 drivers did actually learn their craft. Carlos Sainz Jr., Yuki Tsunoda, who's currently at AlphaTauri. I do believe Sebastian Vettel did one race in 2005. You know, and particularly this design of car, the Dallara 320, this lightweight halo shod machine, which is you know, very popular design aesthetically, you could say, and it's based off the previous Formula 3 cars that were used in championships across the world, and that's where most drivers learn their skills in that type of car. So great that Euroformula and Dallara collaborated to make a car that followed on from those design aspects, including the side-mounted air intake, which is, you know, synonymous with Formula 3, and it's obviously great to see this many cars on track.
Yeah, the Dallara F320 introduced last year in its second year of competitions. The drivers take the opportunity to do a final sighting lap of the circuit, get a little bit of heat into the Control Michelin tire that they all run with. The big variation, however, between the Euroformula Open and some of the other junior single-seater categories is that we do have a choice of engine between the Spice and the HWA, and again, this is the first time that either engine has run in a race at Portimao in the Euroformula Open, so how that unfolds over race distance is going to be another factor to watch for.
Yeah, and while it was quite cloudy this morning, you can see from these pictures that the sun has certainly come out down in the south of Portugal. You know, we'd love to be, you know, outside right now enjoying that sunshine, but that is going to make it easier for the drivers to get temperature into the tyres, because you're not allowed to weave to warm up tyres in this championship. It was a rule brought in after a slightly scary crash many years ago, and drivers really have to stick to that rule. They, you know, they do monitor it closely.
They certainly do. No weaving often comes up on the bottom of the timing strings instruction. As we say that, both Louis Foster and Cameron Dass having a little bit of a wiggle, a little bit more than a wiggle possibly from Rafael Villagomez, but the rule is there, and hopefully that wasn't too liberal an interpretation of it. So the tension mounting as the field tracking along towards the grid positions, just a few squirts on the throttle from Louis Foster, trying to get the heat in because it's a fairly short sprint down to turn 1 and a steep downhill braking zone.
Yeah, it's going to be a very tricky challenge because obviously every time they've approached that corner so far this weekend, it's been at racing speed. This is the first time they'll be doing it from a standstill.
Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon in Portimao. Looking forward then for the next 19 laps. The opening race of the 2021 Euroformula Open season is about to get underway. The green flag is waved at the rear of the field, so it's all eyes to the gantry as the lights come on, the revs build, and off we go. Who gets the jump? It's a good start from Louis Foster. Everybody cleanly away. Also well away from Rafael Villagomez, who might get the jump on the white car of Joss Mason as Cam Das challenges Foster. Villagomez slips third. Mason drops to fourth. A couple of them run wide behind. I think that was Nazim Azman, as they're all cleanly through, jostling for position. There is the car of Zdeněk Chovanec with the teal trim. But is it Cameron Das who's got the advantage? Indeed it is, as they sprint down through. So it's Das from Foster and then Villagomez.
Yeah, it looks like Das got the move done at the second apex there. There's a lock-up, a rear left lock-up from Mason there. Das is still ahead. A liberal use of track limits by a lot of these drivers as they go back up the hill. It's going to be particularly difficult to go side by side as they go into the next corner, but those two drivers are going to try it. That is Chovanec going for 5th place at the moment.
Yeah, Nazim Azman, the man who was busy doing the defending, is at the front of the field. Cameron Das looking to try and stretch his legs clear. We're following the fast and furious battling in the midfield. There is Enzo Trulli, the predominantly white car, as he chases down, I think that was Andreas Essner, who picked up the vote, as Cameron Das.
And Chovanec spins, he's lost the rear end and he has gone off. Yellow flags immediately. If he can keep the engine going, he should be able to rejoin the race. And he's rolling backwards, so I think he's probably got it in neutral.
Yeah, it has been, unfortunately for Zdeněk Chovanec, a day where ambition has rather outweighed adhesion on a couple of occasions. He will be hoping possibly for a safety car to bunch the field up to give him a chance to climb through. But look at the front of the field at the gap that Cameron Das has built. Here we see it again. He's just in the dirty air as well, wasn't he, behind Azman? And possibly couldn't get the grip he thought was there.
Yeah, he did it at the apex of the corner, so it's definitely to do with load and how the car goes over the bump. We go into the second lap. That is a huge lead for Cameron Das already, as Enzo Trulli is trying to attack for, I believe that's 9th place. Trulli's made a lot of progress already. This is only his 17th race start, I think, because obviously he did Formula 4 UAE, but this is his second campaign in car racing in total.
And it was Andreas Essner who was chasing down as we followed back for second place, because Cameron Das is rather checked out at the front. Then we've got this fight between Louis Foster, Rafael Villagomez and Joss Mason. Here's another look at it, and Foster was well away. It was Mason, the white car on the second row, who was a little bit slower off the line. They all fan out, make it safely through, and then will we get a glimpse of where Das was able to dart past? Looking at the very top of our picture, not quite from that angle.
But we saw at the exit that he was ahead at turn 3, the Lagos hairpin, so I expect what happened there was Foster went too deep, then had to apply a lot of lock, and obviously had to slow the car as a result, and Das just nipped by, and he's already got a fairly substantial lead, which is going to be very good for his victory prospects here.
Yeah, how deep is your lock was the missed hit from the Bee Gees, as meanwhile Louis Foster's got a fair bit of work to do, because he's got Villagomez behind him, and again running a little bit wide. There is Joss Mason into this very fast downhill final turn. Great to see the different setups on the car. A little bit of twitching there from Andreas Essner as he sets off in pursuit of Casper Stevenson.
And Louis Foster's actually just set the fastest lap, so he is closing in on Cameron Das at this early stage of the race, but there is quite a margin. We're going to see the timing of that lap, 1:38.044, so that's around 2 seconds off what they were setting in qualifying, but these tyres do tend to get quicker in the races, so I expect we're going to see an even faster pace in this race than we had earlier today in the qualifying session.
So we have got Das leading, and from that angle, Foster would appear to be a fair bit closer, wouldn't he, to the American he was a lap ago. And maybe as he's got a little bit of heat into the tyres, got them running at the optimum pressure, as here is a little bit of a look further back at the moment that...
It's a replay of Foster.
I think it's Mason running wide in 4th. That's what we're going to see.
So the track limits are defined at turn 4, turn 1 and final corners as going beyond that red and white curb. So you can put wheels over the white line that bordered the circuit. But if you go fully over the curb, that's when they investigate it as a track limits violation, and they can penalise drivers as a result of that, like we saw in qualifying. And with all these crests, the car, the rear end of the car becomes very unstable, and it's very easy to lose it.
I mean, in that instance, I don't think Josh Mason got any benefit, particularly if he'd gone any wider with Madeira. So we have got there Enzo Trulli just chasing down Andreas Essner, and now that gap between the leaders would appear to be down by another couple of car lengths over the course of this lap. Let's see. So it is creeping downwards all the while. I wouldn't be at all surprised to see another fastest lap going in the way of Louis Foster this time. Indeed he does. And 1:37.4. Now that is, again, great pace. He's within the second of Cameron Dass, and crucially, I think, Elliot, in his slipstream.
Yeah, and while we don't have DRS here, being within 1 second of the car tends to be that point where you're going to get the benefit. And we're seeing Enzo Scionti is going to try and make a move on Vivian Scully, and does it. So that is for position there at the back. Great racing towards the back. Foster's getting ever closer to Das. Now, he can't use too much of his tyres early on, but he does know that track position at a circuit like this does mean everything, because apart from that first corner, and Das looked a little slow on the exit there, but the camera angles are quite distortive here because of how far out they are, and that, they're zooming in. But that gap is definitely closing corner by corner.
And they're just beginning to try and break away from Villa Gomez and Mason in 5th place. Nazim Azman's pretty much the only person who's having a relatively lonely race, because Casper Stevenson has got his mirrors absolutely filled with Andreas Essner, the pair of them fighting over 6th and 7th place, and then not too much of a gap back to Enzo Trulli either, as they run downhill off the tabletop. This takes them into the third sector of the lap, up into the tight left-hand hairpin, and then the road will begin to wind back, almost ever-increasing speed right-handers to bring them through towards the end of the lap. As will this be another fastest lap from Louis Foster? We're still watching the Essner and Stevenson battle, and Stevenson's got a slightly brighter, I guess, from the front helmet than Andreas Essner. That's probably the easiest way to tell the two Van Amersfoort Racing teammates apart. And that time, fastest lap for Cameron Dass.
Yeah, he's responded to the pressure Louis Foster was applying. Now, that is going to be the thing as well. They're getting more comfortable with the circuit. They know where their braking points are going to be now. Particularly, we've got a lot of blind, crested corners here, like turn 4, so they know where to attack those corners. Maybe Das, once he was in the lead, was a little cautious at first, and now he's matching what Louis is doing behind him.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what communication he's been getting from the team, just in terms of managing his pace, as Andreas Essner, having lost that 3rd place from running wide in qualifying, he's not really made masses of progress up through the field just yet. The fight for 3rd and 4th yet to really crackle into life. It's then really this battle all the way from 5th through to 8th, from Nazim Azman all the way back to Enzo Trulli, which is where we've got the closest competition at the moment, because from that angle at the front of the field, Cameron Dass is continuing.
There is a big lock up there. I think that was from Stevenson in 5th place. 6th.
It could well have been. Well, yes, it looks like it was, because Andreas Essner appears to be a little bit closer to him. And it's just on the point of saying that Cameron Dass is really breaking clear of Louis Foster. And so the time interval suggests it is. He's gained almost half a second over the course of the last 2 laps. So really impressive stuff this from Cameron Dass. And all the while, they're stretching clear of the fight for 3rd and 4th.
Yeah, and Villa Gomez has obviously raced in Euroformula 4. He did the season finale last year. Das, another fastest lap, a 1:36.888. That is now 8/10 of the qualifying pace. So these cars are getting very fast around the circuit. And, at one point they're going to be going faster than they've ever been. And they won't have the data to know, how later can you brake when on this fuel load in particular as well, because obviously qualifying's on a lower fuel load and on tyres that have done more laps. So a lot of new factors in the unknown coming in this race.
And this is what the drivers will just be computing all the way through, really using their very, very nuanced feel of what's going on in terms of the grit, feeling out the braking points and so on and so forth, as we look at the car of Casper Stevenson. And Stevenson, he's currently leading the rookie trophy in this race from Enzo Trulli and then Zdeněk Chovanec. And Chovanec, the only driver who's a bit adrift of the field after that early spin. And Enzo Trulli starting to ask a few questions here of Andreas Essner. And he's got a good run of him, actually, as they come up over the crest. As here is the race leader, Cameron Dass. And Dass's advantage over Louis Foster, 1.4 seconds. And it's a pity we didn't see how he took the lead, but having claimed it. He's showing that the pace that he demonstrated in winter testing and in qualifying this morning, no fluke whatsoever, and is really consistently absorbing the pressure at the front of the field.
Yeah, and he's gained 1 position from where he started, and the driver who gains the most positions in this race will gain an additional 2 points. So, and we're looking at the timing screens. Enzo Trulli is currently in 8th, but he started down in 10th. He's gained 2 spots, so he'll be in contention for this. And it does look like he's actually eyeing up a move on Andreas Essner. He's going to take the inside line going into the first corner. He could probably get the move done even before then.
He should do, as he draws alongside and through he goes. Nice pass from Enzo Trulli. Again, it possibly appeared as if Essner was a little bit slow coming out of the final turn, because in Euroformula Open terms that was reasonably straightforward for Trulli, but now he's passed. Can he, well, he's the middle carriage on the Trulli train, can he move towards the front of it? He's got a couple of cars to try and catch to do that, and here is the replay of them all over the curb embedded camera, and Josh Mason from that angle looks to be a fair bit closer to Rafael Villagomez. Here meanwhile is the move from Trulli to the inside of Essner, and that was textbook stuff.
Yeah, very clean, very clear. And now he's gained 3 places, so he is definitely in contention for those additional 2 points. And the point system we do use for finishing positions is the same as Formula 1 here. 25 for first place, 18 for second, 15 for third, and then 12, 10, and it goes down in increments of 2 until you get to 9th and 10th, where it's 2 points and 1 point.
The crucial difference, though, to F1 is that they have got 3 drop scores through the year, so if it all goes a little bit wrong, it's not a disaster necessarily in terms of the championship. So here's the fight for third. It's been threatening to crackle into life for a couple of laps now, and this is as close as Josh Mason has been to the rear spoiler of Rafael Villagomez really since the start of the race. Now, is he going to be able to do something about overhauling the Mexican as they climb up along the pit straight plateau before the road falls away into the braking zone at turn 1? That angle possibly foreshortens how close Mason is. He just shows himself in the mirrors. Given how short the braking distances are in these cars, no way through as they both run wide.
Yeah, and obviously when both drivers do that, neither of them gains an advantage over the other, so it's harder for the stewards to distinguish. But one thing of note there actually is you're losing tyre temperature as you go down that pit straight, but you're building it because of that very long final corner, which makes it simultaneously easier to pass and harder to pass going into the first corner of the next lap. So the longer Mason spends behind Villagomez here, his tyres are going to get warmer because he's running in dirty air, and but it's still going to be harder for him to overtake even though he's getting closer. So what he needs to do is just get the move done as early as possible. Take a chance, make the move, get track position.
He's just really got to try and surprise Rafael Villagomez, and often sometimes when the drivers are playing cat and mouse like this, they'll pretend they're strong in parts of the circuits that they're not in order to then spring a move in an unexpected position. But at the moment, Villagomez seems to have the advantage of Mason. But what Mason needs to try and do really is drive through that dirty air, stay as close as he can to the tail of the third place car to build for a run into turn 1. But already you can see that invisible elastic between them. It's gone out to about 5 or 6 car lengths. That will close up a little bit through the final turn, and just look like one single turn of the wheel for Josh Mason as they then climb up along again. And I'd say, Elliot, that he's not going to be close enough to challenge this time around.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be able to make it. He's going to gain at least kind of 2 tenths on his lap time by being in that slipstream, but you know, it doesn't mean anything if he can't get past. And he's lost the rear end. You could hear the tyres going as he entered the corner then. He's kept it going. Can he keep the engine running though? He hasn't stalled it. He's going to drop down the order, but that was an unlucky moment for Mason, but he's going to return to track. I was looking at the battle up front as well. Cameron Dass on that last lap took it from, I think, 1.8 seconds now up to 2.4. An incredible lap for the leader there.
Oh, so frustrating for Josh Mason. He rejoins right at the tail of the field. A very, very costly spin. Now, here is another look at it. So he's tucked up behind Rafael Villagomez, not really close enough to challenge. And the car just goes around with him. But it wasn't even a particularly dramatic moment. It seemed to go in stages, but then took a little bit of a while to get back up to speed and on his way. But that's a possible podium. And also, Elliot, with a view to the second race later this afternoon, a fairly lowly starting position.
Yeah, and we're going to run. I imagine he'll use a different set of tyres for that next race, but it's never good to lock up tyres like that either. As we return to our leader, Cameron Dass, looking for his first Euroformula win in, I think, 40 45 or 46 starts. He's been in this series for a while. 2.6 seconds now as he comes down through the final corner and then goes up through the final corner and then back down again as he goes down the pit straight. Very interesting there that he didn't have a single input at the steering wheel going through that final corner. Motor Park sets up their cars so it rotates more and the rear end is a little looser, and therefore the drivers do have a bit more to do at the wheel. But then again, it's just playing with the weight of the car when you're driving.
So Das looking for his maiden victory in the Euroformula Open now, with a view to pole position in the next race. As things stand, it's this driver here, Enzo Trilli, and some more wisps of smoke as the camera cut across. Was that a lock-up or a rotation for somebody? But with the top 6 reversed, Enzo Trilli would be starting the second race of the campaign from pole position. So he really is having quite the performance this afternoon, up from 10th on the grid, now running in 6th, as the 2 leaders well clear of Rafael Villagomez.
Yeah, and Enzo Trilli's only got, I think I said 16 earlier, but it's 19 races under his belt in his whole car racing career. And they were all in January and February, just a few months ago. So he's very new to car racing, but he's picking up the skills fast. We return to our leader, a lot of work at the steering wheel, but he's still also looking very smooth, which is important because that's how you're going to keep the tyres in a good performance window. And also if he wants to hold off Louis Foster later in the race, he needs to have the advantage on tyre life as well as just an advantage on pace.
And as ever with watching these races, it looks like a comfortable lead, and it's so deceptive because we're talking about 3 seconds here, a tiny error, and that would be gone in the blink of an eye for Cameron Das. The level of concentration and focus required to put in lap after lap at the front of the field. You can't just build the buffer and relax. You've got to stay as focused as possible, as Foster managing the gap at the moment. Then it's about just shy of 6 seconds back to Villagomez, and I would suggest that Villagomez is slipping into the clutches here of Nazim Azman.
Yeah, it does look like it. Azman has been getting faster over the last 2 laps, but he's probably responding to the pressure from behind because he's got Casper Stevenson and then Enzo Trilli. Looked like there was a lock-up there, and another lock-up actually for Casper Stevenson on the left rear. Now that's an odd one to lock up at because it's a fairly low-speed corner in general. Yeah, very interesting time so far for these drivers in the middle of the pack.
And Trilli is applying the pressures to Stevenson, who is just giving Azman the hurry along. And then we have got Rafael Villagomez, and this is a track that has been successful for Mexican drivers in the past in Euroformula Open. Juan Carlos Sistos winning here back in 2012, as Trilli continues in 5th position, pushing Stevenson along, and so that fight from 3rd through to 7th beginning to close up on itself a little bit. Then in 8th place we've got Felipe Caminaras. We've not seen masses of him. In 9th place is the recovering Joss Mason, and then Enzo Scionti currently rounds out the top 10, although he has been having a great race-long battle with Vivian Castelli, as here is the race leader, and that's been another great lap from Cameron Das, a good half a second or so taken out further over Louis Foster. Yeah,
that lead is beyond 4 seconds now, so with 17 minutes to go and a lap around here is around 1 minute 38. That's not long they've got to close that gap unless there is a big mistake up front. And with such short braking zones and high-speed corners, that gap is going to be quite hard to narrow down if there isn't a mistake.
Well, just looking at the rear wings there, and it could just be that the DriveX car's livery is a little bit lighter, but it seems that Enzo Trilli is running a very slightly flatter rear wing than the car in front of him, Casper Stevenson. It's hard to say. We'll try and look for a different angle, but certainly they're trying to make that car as slippery as possible.
Let's see it come over the hill. Yeah, it does look like they're running a little less wing, but that would help with straight line speed and would help him overtake. But at the moment, we're just seeing him stuck at the back of the car, so potentially, set up elsewhere isn't quite enough to get past. And Enzo Scionti and Vivian Castelli are still fighting for position. I think Scionti took the position on the last lap. Kessie just got past, and then he's reclaimed the position.
So really enjoyable tussle there, as Trilli trying to pile the pressure onto Casper Stevenson. Stevenson likewise on the tail of Nazim Azman, and then Rafael Villagomez just seems to have again responded to Azman driving up onto his tail. Now 1.7 or so seconds clear the Mexican ahead of the Malaysian in the fight for third and fourth place. So my understanding is this is a 19 lap or 35-minute race. So we're keeping a track on the clock at the moment as Das reels off another lap and his lead over Louis Foster. I mean, this is really impressive stuff from Cam Das at the moment, because he is taking between 4 and 5 tenths of a second a lap out of Louis Foster in second position.
Yeah, so I think 4 tenths on the last lap, 4 tenths on the previous lap. That is around a 0.04 percentage time pace advantage. That might not make sense in the maths terms, but that's quite a big advantage to have over a lap that's around 96 seconds.
Well, Nasser will be on the phone to recruit you in a moment, Elliot, because that's still pretty quick calculations by my books, as here is the fight going on between Chianti and Castelli in the battle for 10th and 11th place. And I'm glad we've gone back to this battle. The former W Series point scorer, Vivian Castelli, chasing Enzo Chianti, the American, making the step up to Euroformula Open with the DriveX team as they run downhill into the hairpin at the back of the pit area. Closes up onto braking, but can't quite yet prize the opening.
Yeah, and Vivian has the experience advantage here, as well as W Series. She did a lot of driving with Audi, which is how she got backing from the German manufacturer. A lot of touring car racing around Europe, as well as Asian F3. Now, a single-seater car, though, is obviously very different to a touring car and a sports car. The downforce in these cars is so on the edge, particularly when they're going over these bumps. You know, downforce literally pushes the car down. And when the car's unloading over a bump, you lose that. So it's all down to driver feel and driver confidence, and obviously that comes with experience.
And as we get to the final third of the race, it also comes down to driver fitness a little bit, because the Portimao circuit is one of the most relentless on the calendar. You've just got the one long start and finish straight. All the other parts of the track, you're really busy, either mid-corner or setting up for the next corner, and not as much opportunity to rest, as Enzo Trulli are definitely appreciably closer this time to Casper Stevenson, just half a second, just shy of half a second back from Stevenson, unable to do anything on the brakes into turn one. And this is a mature drive from Trulli as well, because he set aside the temptation to have a little bit of a nibble to the inside of Stevenson then, and as a result kept the car nicely settled and grounded through the first corner, going around to try maybe at the end of this lap.
Yeah, and on the fitness thing, obviously the heat would add to that, and it does look very sunny out there, but I've just checked the latest weather reports, and if they're ever accurate, and it's around 17 degrees Celsius out there, so not too tough physically on that point for the drivers. But obviously, and we are well aware that some of the cars have slightly different steering setups, you could say, as well, but such a high downforce car with high cornering speeds is going to be very, very physical to actually turn around the corners because of that downforce. It wants to continue going in a straight line, and you really have to muscle the steering wheel to actually turn the car, even though this is a very light car compared to other single-seaters at this level.
So in terms of the most positions gained, it is looking like Enzo Trulli as well. 4 places gained thus far for Trulli, so that would look to give him the extra couple of points, as another lap being reeled off by Cam Das. His advantage over Louis Foster now out to 5.4 seconds, and then Foster has got a big chunk of time over Villa Gomez, the best part of 6 seconds or so, and it's 1.3 seconds thereafter back to Nazim Asman. Then the battle between Casper Stevenson and Enzo Trulli, with Andres Esner there in 7th, and Esner's really struggled to make progress through the field during the race.
Yeah, he didn't have the kind of testing time that a lot of these drivers did over the winter, so did kind of jump straight back into the car for Portugal and had to relearn a lot of things. As the battle for 10th place continues, Vivian Castelli takes that position back from Enzo Chianti, but he's actually stayed very, very close. He's going to try going into turn 3. He's going to go deeper on the exit, doesn't actually attempt the move, going up into the blind crest of turn 4, one of the hardest corners on the circuit, very much a place for track limits. You'll notice Vivian's looking in her mirrors. She thinks he's going to try it again at the next corner.
Indeed he might, because Vivian Castelli taking very defensive lines, and that means that Enzo Chianti will be overcommitted then. I was going to say would be able to take advantage on the exit speed, but he ran out a little bit wide there, no benefit. And here's another look at how it started, right in the toe behind Chianti and out of the bubble to the inside, and that was a very neatly executed pass.
Yeah, once you're alongside a driver, it's far easier to pass it, because the disruptive air for the driver on the outside line going to that corner makes their car a little looser going in. we're seeing another lap being completed by Das. The lead hasn't grown as much as it has previously. It's 5.5 seconds as he crosses the line, but I don't even think he can see Louis Foster's in his mirrors at this point.
No, Foster managing that gap to Villagomez, who is definitely a little bit in fourth place. Nazim Azman, there is the Malaysian, is definitely a little bit closer to Villagomez, I'd say. And the timing screen backs that up. It was about 1.3 seconds a lap ago. It's down to 1.1 now. The Stevenson-Trulli-Nesta battle seems to have just settled itself down as Cameron Das, race leader, holder of the fastest lap at this stage in proceedings as well. But are we going to have a final twist in the tail in the fight for third place?
I think we might do. I'm trying to look in the background now because my weather forecast, if I can trust it again, says there's a strong tailwind picking up, kind of in a western direction, around 16 miles an hour. Now that's pretty considerable. We actually saw the timing gantry bobbing up and down as we saw Das cross the line. So I'm wondering if that's going to help the drivers who want to make overtakes here, because that slipstream effect is going to be even more powerful in that case.
Well, the background shot for wind turbines then suggested that it's breezy, as do those trees. Our commentary box doesn't give us a direct view of the circuit, so we couldn't say first hand, but the clues around the track now, that will certainly help things along, possibly for Nazim Azman. There is a great indication of just how those gaps have come down, and he has got, by my reckoning then, if we're on lap 16, we have got 3 laps to play with after this one, so that is enough time for Azman to close that gap down a little bit and then pull the pin maybe for 1 or 2 shots at taking that third place away from Rafael Villagomez.
Yeah, and you can see how his car was handling over the bumps there of the final corner. This track is very bumpy, although it was resurfaced a few years ago. One of the key characteristics, as well as the roller coaster effects, all the ups and downs, is just how patchworky the bumpiness is. Azman runs a little bit wide there. He's actually going to lose a bit of time doing that. There isn't really much of an advantage to gain when curbs are there to slow cars down. As Das has now got his lead up to 6.2 seconds.
Well, he wants to start the season with a bang. He's certainly doing that, laying down a marker for his rivals, although that will mean in this afternoon's second race he's going to have to carve his way through some traffic up from 6th on the grid, and that should be very entertaining, given how closely matched some of the cars have been during the course of the race. Now here comes Josh Mason, and he is looking to try and recover up to 8th place, ahead of Philip Camanaraz. And Mason, who of course was in that fight for third earlier on, who just joined us, he spun away his chances at turn 1, but he's going to score some points. He'll be hoping to make it a little bit more than he's currently got with that 9th place.
Yeah, and we saw him lock up his front left there a few moments ago, and that is probably an after effect of that early spin where he locked up the front and the rear tyres, trying to prevent himself from going in gravel. That is a big off. That looks like potentially a car issue there, because that's a very strange way to lose the car. Mason is through. He's gained a place. He's back up to 8th. We're going to follow the progress of Philippe Caminiars right now to see if his car is fine. The rear of the car looks good. Let's see a replay of it.
I think he just missed his braking point, didn't he? And recovered it very, very quickly. Possibly just momentary lapse of concentration. Hopefully no lingering problem there for the Polish driver. No such concerns, meanwhile, for Cam Das, the American, who has been on the podium before in the Euroformula Open. He has never won a race, and we are just a few moments away from that being rectified this afternoon in Portimao. This has been a really, really fine performance. It just looked so smooth ever since the lights went out. Unflustered, responded beautifully to some early pressure from Louis Foster, and is now just romping away from Foster. The Team Motorpark driver, Cam Das, then coming towards the closing stages of another lap, and we admire photosynthesis in action, and then eventually over the crest of the hill comes Louis Foster in 2nd position.
Yeah, so this is Das's 57th Euroformula race, so a long time coming for his first win in the series. Obviously he matched his best qualifying result this morning as well, so all round a very good day to start off the season for the American.
It really has been, as the laps get whittled away, the clock gets whittled down as Das accelerates through the final corner, reels off another tour of the circuit. Oh, I love these shots with the heat haze shimmering off the cars, and this is always the wonderful thing about the start of the season. We head into the final lap, a warm day in the Algarve, perfect setting to start the Euroformula Open campaign. Now, the real question mark for this final lap is, are we going to see a last gasp challenge for third? And just a couple of twitches there from Villagomez. He's certainly well aware that Nazim Azman is in his mirrors.
Yeah, and Azman's got the possibility here that he can go for a potentially risky move, because he's now got that gap to Casper Stevenson in fifth. He doesn't have to worry about being overtaken if he's going to make a move himself.
And as it stands as well, Villanova and Azman, they'll both be sharing the second row of the grid for the start of the second race later on today. So will he roll the dice or not? For Cam Das, it is no question whatsoever that he just needs to get round this final lap. He will be listening for every beat of the engine, hoping that absolutely nothing goes wrong, because he really has put in an absolutely imperious performance.
Yep, I think it will be his first win since the 2019 Toyota Racing Series.
So Cam Das just a couple of corners from home, and will he be a full 10 seconds clear of Louis Foster by the time they get to the checkered flag? It's going to be a pretty close run thing. A 9-second advantage in a series as evenly matched as the Euroformula Open is quite something, as Cameron Das accelerates down the hill for the final time. He can see the checkered flag, and it's victory in the opening round of the 2021 Euroformula Open to Team Motorpark and Cameron Das. He takes the checkered flag and celebrates in Portimao. Across the line in second position is Louis Foster, the pole sitter for Crypto Tower Racing, and then in third place Rafael Villagomez does the job for Van Amersfoort Racing, just holding off Nazim Azman, with Casper Stevenson in fifth, Enzo Trulli home in sixth, which gives him pole for race two later. Andreas Essner in seventh, Josh Mason across the line in eighth from Philip Maraz, and then will take 10th place. It is Vivian Castelli who rounds out the top 10 from Enzo Schulze.
A thrilling race there. Obviously, some of the gaps are bigger than the others. We're seeing a thumbs up from Cameron Das there. Unfortunately, with COVID restrictions, there aren't too many fans about, or particularly anyone to see, but it's good to see him celebrating and starting the year on a high.
Well, it's always a nice gesture for the drivers as they go around to thank the marshals who have taken the time to officiate on the meeting, and he's making sure he gives a thumbs up and a wave pretty much to every marshal's post, as I'm sure they'll be out to applaud him as well, because that was a very fine performance, and it's been a long time coming, the Euroformula Open, but to take that first victory supporting a Grand Prix in front of the Formula One paddock is a very, very good way for Cam Das to open his victory account in the series.
Yeah, and a great way to start the season as well. We saw very clean racing. We saw the drivers mostly being mistake-free. We did see one or two spins, but you can expect that on still a fairly green track at this point in the weekend. Even more thumbs up from Cameron Das. He really is looking for every single marshal at the track, trying to say thank you to them.
Well, why not? Because the lap back round when you've claimed victory is a very, very special moment for any driver in any series, and he thoroughly enjoys, or thoroughly deserves rather, to enjoy his moment of success. And really intriguing race to start the season. Lots of great midfield battles, and it sets us up absolutely beautifully for the reverse grid race later on this afternoon. That is going to get underway about 4:25 local time in Portugal, which is, if you're watching the UK, exactly the same time, and mainland Europe adjusted by an hour, as Das pulls up in Parc Ferme. He is overjoyed as he pulls the wheel, clambers out of the car, with then second place going the way of Louis Foster, and third to Rafael Villagomez.
He celebrates with his team. He's very happy. That's a long time coming for him. So 57 race starts, and now finally the first win. And I can't remember the last time the American national anthem was played on top of a Euroformula podium.
It would be Colson Herter.
Oh yes.
Going IndyCar race winner. Going back a couple of years. So let's have a look then at the final classification. And it is Cameron Das, the victory, 9.4 seconds in the end, clear of Louis Foster, with Rafael Villagomez in third. Nazim Azman fourth, from Casper Stevenson in fifth. Enzo Trulli sixth, that gives him pole for the top 6 reverse grid race later. Andres Esner in 7th, ahead of Josh Mason, had that mid-race spin. Philip Caminares from Vivian Castelli, she and Enzo Scionti having a superb race-long tussle, eventually decided in favour of the Hungarian driver. And then Zdeněk Chovanec a little bit adrift after his early spin. He never quite regained the ground, but he has got another 2 shots at it over the course of this opening round of the season.
Yep, a great start to the season, and obviously we'll have a 3rd race tomorrow as well. The drivers have a socially distanced process here where they get to rehydrate, because, you know, it is a very physically demanding task to drive a single-seater. They get the winner's cap provided by Michelin, great caps I have to say, and then hopefully we're going to see our podium as well.
But we should also pay due attention, of course, to our rookie trophy winner. That was Casper Stevenson, who took the rookie trophy win from Enzo Trulli and then Enzo Scionti. So that gives us a rookie trophy podium as well. But lots of congratulations, and very happy drivers, pleased with their performance. Look in super slow motion, that's at work. That is a fantastic shot of the car. Just the slightest hint of a drift into that downhill curve.
Yeah, these cars are really on the limit when they're driven at a circuit like this. It's what a Formula 3 level car is designed to do. Be driven around tracks like Algarve, Spa-Francorchamps, Monza, real driver's circuits.
And what Das did so well was get that balance right between pushing the car on the limit without pushing over the limit and unduly slowing himself down, and that really takes some doing.
Yeah, all that experience put to very good use.
So the drivers about to climb up the steps to the podium.
For the Euroformula Open Series, with in 3rd place from Mexico.
You can hear them being announced up onto the rostrum. So 3rd place to Rafael Villagomez, and that was a really fine performance from the Mexican, because he was absorbing pressure throughout the course of the race and did that very, very well. In 2nd position, Louis Foster. Body language there, Elliot, just might be feeling that's one that got away.
Yeah, quite probably. You know, he started on pole, so to finish 2nd from pole position is never something drivers often smile about.
But Cameron Das will doubtless be grinning from ear to ear behind the surgical mask, because that was a super performance. Fist bumps all round as he takes his place on the top step of the podium for Team Motor Park, with Casper Stevenson, Van Amersfoort Racing claiming the rookie trophy.
And now the national anthem of the United States. To
so the Star Spangled Banner salutes Cameron Das, victorious in the opening race of the Euroformula Open season at the Portimao circuit, supporting the Portuguese Grand Prix, and he hoists his trophy aloft in celebration.
Thank you.
Louis Foster doing the same.
Team Motor Park, the winning team.
As drivers posing for photos, I doubt they will be making merry with the bubbly, because they and we will be back in a couple of hours' time. The 2nd race of the weekend getting underway in 16:25, so about two and a quarter hours from now, so not much time for the drivers to get back to the awnings and recharge themselves. Well, that's what Villa Gomez are going to go for it anyway, aren't they, Elliot?
Yeah, and that stuff does smell, so the overalls won't be the nicest afterwards. But very good thing, even though we've got a limited time schedule here, is that none of the teams have to repair any cars. You know, every car came back to the finish line in perfect condition. So not too much work for the teams. It's mostly going to be focused on setup as we go forward.
It will be. So it's been a brilliant start to the Euroformula Open season. Thank you very much for joining us in Portimao. We'll see you later on today. Until then, it's goodbye from Elliot Wood and Ben Evans.